All right, we're live. Addison, what's up, man?
What's going on?
Not much, dude. All right, so first things first, you're a father now. Congratulations, man. I'm
Yep, as of June 23rd, 3:43 a.m.
yep, coming up on you already crossed the 1 month, man. 1 month and 4 days. You get to spend the
Mm-hmm.
next like 2 years counting in months until she turns two, and then suddenly it'll be like she's two.
And she's 16 and a half months.
That's literally like with Dax, like we're because Dax is he'll be two in December, and so people ask me like, how
Oh,
old is
yeah.
he? And I'm like 19 months. Yeah, it'll be 19 months next week.
That's so weird. But I
I
guess
know.
they're kind of changing so rapidly at that young of age that 1 month ago she looked like a purple blobfish, and now she looks like a baby. So
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy, dude. But then I feel like once they get to two, people are just like, how old? Yeah, how old is he? He's two. It's almost kind of like he's fucking two. Like, oh, please let it end.
so
Go on.
in honor of our this podcast, an observation occurred to me when you asked me to come on a couple days ago or yesterday or whenever. Time doesn't matter
Yeah,
anymore.
time is a flat
Um,
circle.
so I turned 30 a week and a half ago, and I met you when I was 15. So I've officially known you for half my life now.
Damn,
Think about that.
that's insane. God, what a world.
And time flies too. I feel like it was just yesterday that you were at your whatever shithole high school wasn't Mountain Point. We were
Corona.
being friends of friends.
Yeah, dude. It's weird. It's weird looking back on it that high school was 12 years ago now. It was when we
Oh, I
graduated.
know. Well, even so, like, I got home from the hospital
Mm-hmm.
and because Claire and I sleep in separate rooms because I have the CPAP, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I would say until last weekend, I was sleeping on the ground in her room. And to get to sleep, I would just put my headphones in and put some music on YouTube. And I would keep getting playlists of stuff from like the early 2000s, like Stained and Linkin Park and
Oh
stuff for
my
some reason.
god.
And you look at the dates of release and you're like, 2008. What?
Yeah.
That was 12 years ago. That was almost half my life ago. What the?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, you have this weird moment too, like, and I think it lasts for a while after you have a kid, where you're just like, holy shit, like, you just like you look back on that stuff from that time period, and you're like, it just feels like forever ago now. It's like a
Well,
whole
yeah.
other part of your life.
What is the Linkin Park of my daughter's life going to be? Because you
I
know
don't
what I
know,
mean.
dude.
Like, what sort of crazy shit is she going to be listening to when she's 12 years old?
COVID cabana.
Yep.
I don't know. So yeah, how's being a dad, dude? Like, so she's a month old. You said you spent first you mentioned right before you got started you spent a week in the hospital. Why was that?
So we had arrived at the hospital on Friday morning, I think, of that whatever June 22nd or something.
Mm-hmm.
And Claire was in labor, so we got all hooked up and ready to go into the room and everything. And I think we were pushing until 3 a.m. the next morning or something, and just nothing was happening. And
Damn.
Flora was in the wrong position, so Claire ended up having to have a C-section at 3:30 in the morning. So
How tired were you? Oh shit, I have my notifications on. 1 sec. They can hold on. They can hear my what's going on. The video is crashing. No, I have OBS. I have OBS on, so we can hear when we get a follow, or I can. I gotta mute it. Muted. ShackCast. Aha, there we go. Anyways, yeah. So how tired were you? So this was 3:30 in the morning, and you had gotten in. When did you get to the hospital the previous day?
Well, I had woke up at 5 a.m. the previous day because that's when I wake up to take my medicine. So
Mm-hmm.
I was very tired.
Yes,
And,
I
and
remember,
they
dude. The exhaustion was so terrible because Kimmy went into labor at about like 3 a.m. on Christmas Day.
Oh my God.
So then the whole of Christmas Day, like that was when it started, like contractions started. And then the whole of Christmas Day, like we went to my parents' house Christmas morning to kind of try to do our normal Christmas stuff because we're like, well, it's probably still going to be about like 24 hours because the contractions had just started. And so she made it through Christmas breakfast, and then she was like, I'm done. I have to go home and lay down. And so we went, and she was laying on the couch, and I literally just sat there staring at her for 12 hours because I was like, I can't leave her side. I can't do anything. I was like, there was like this primal thing in me where I was like, I couldn't do anything else but focus on her the entire time. And so we ended up getting to the hospital at like 12:30, and then at like 3:30 in the morning, I ended up just passing out, and I woke up again at 7, and she was in like I think at 7 in the morning she got an epidural, and she was trying to go no epidural.
Yeah, there was too.
Yeah,
but
so yeah, I'm sure it's like the exhaustion is just, and there's like it's so intense because like it's not just that you haven't slept, it's that you like every hormone in your body is just like going off and being like, it's time, like I must protect my family. Like,
well, and you're just at a point like it's action time for hours, and so your adrenaline, you squeeze your adrenal glands dry just trying to stay awake.
Yeah, seriously.
So, you definitely feel that come down. But Claire, like they put the epidural in, but Claire's small, right?
Yeah.
And Flora is normal size, which for Claire is a giant.
Yeah.
And was pressing down on her bladder and preventing her from peeing while they're pumping her full of fluid. So her bladder she was like dying in pain.
Yeah,
and epidural won't do shit about that because that's not what it's made to do. And so at some point they're like, you're not pushing the baby out because you can't feel your contractions, but you're in a huge amount of pain. We got to cut this sucker out. So,
oh my God, did you go in for the surgery?
So I don't know if this is how like all hospitals do it or whatever, but they basically wheeled her in there first and they got her all set up and ready to go. And then they forgot to bring me in at the right time. So that was great. But they basically brought me in after she was already cut open. So I saw that shit and that was wild. And then,
that's so horrible. So Kimmy and I were watching Amy Schumer's, she did a documentary about her pregnancy. And when her baby was born, they showed her just fully cut open on the table. And I was like, oh my God.
It's a gruesome sight. But at the same time, like, they bring you around they have this little curtain basically that covers the neck here. And then you just see her head and they bring you on the other side of that. And man, they pulled her out of there and they were having trouble getting her out because her nose was getting stuck on like the edge of the incision.
Oh my God.
But I don't know if the documentary showed them actually pulling the baby out, but it is a very violent action because they have to, the cut's like this long and the baby's head's like that big. So they're ripping her out by her neck.
Yikes.
So they pull her out and it's purple because they're working out the oxygen from the blood still.
Yep.
And there's like no muscle tension whatsoever. So she had jowls. She looked like a blobfish. If you go look up a blobfish, that's what she looked like. I was just like, what the fuck? This is crazy.
What did you feel when you saw her for the first time, though?
Oh, I cried. I mean, I was just so happy because with my luck, I was expecting something terrible to happen. So this whole last 9 months, I've just been terrified, but it all worked out. So I'm going to be happy about that.
Yeah, I'm so happy for you, man. I was waiting for it to happen, and it so you were the last of us to have kids. I was first, Kenneth was second, and then you were the last. And I remember you and we were talking about it, and you weren't certain it was going to happen for you. I remember you saying I don't know if it's going to happen. We've been trying for a long time, nothing's working. And I remember thinking at one point, I was like, I have a card that I've been meaning to send to you, and I'm going to, but I bought this card because I was like, he's going to need this someday soon. And sure enough, he did. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm ecstatic. It's, you learn real quick when they're a baby and, you obviously have more experience, but my observation is all suffering is temporary. So I it's not college anymore. I'm 30 years old. I can't really do the 3 hours of sleep thing. Doesn't matter. I will hold that baby until my arms fall off,
Yep.
until my muscles ache, and good luck trying to get her away from me, unless you're Claire.
Yeah, I mean, it is this weird thing where it's like, especially in those first, like, I mean, I remember right where I was, like, being right where you are. And it's like, you just, anything that has to be done, you're going to fucking do it. Like, you're just in this amazing place of just being focused on only one thing, and you just get shit done. Like, anything that has to be taken care of, you take care of it instantly. There's no distractions, because the only thing you care about is making sure that that baby is okay and that your wife is okay. And for you, with Claire doing the C-section, you have to also take care of Claire. Like, she can't walk for, like, I mean, that's like a 4-week recovery process, right? Or longer?
Yeah, about that. I mean, they sent us home after a week, and then it's supposed to take like 3 to 6 weeks, because there's 2 sets of sutures, right? There's the actual uterine sutures, then there's the external scar. So I guess she kind of tore her internal ones a little bit. We learned that today, but she's healed up pretty well. I mean, it about as long as it took for my thyroid scar to heal.
Yeah.
It's just an external incision, so. But yeah, it's definitely like, when we were, so here's my bad luck. Okay. So we get out of the C-section, we go to the recovery room for like 4 hours, because they had to wait till shift change to get us into the actual, whatever I don't even remember the name of it now, room is, to go like convalesce, upstairs.
Yeah. The maternity ward.
Maternity ward. And I had, for a week, like, dysentery.
I remember you told us that. Like, I texted you the day after, and I was like, dude, how are you doing? You're like, I'm shitting my brains out, and that's about all that's going on right now.
It was just sheer misery, because they do not build those rooms, I think, for long-term husband being there, because the bed is basically a like 3 very thin couch cushions on a wood cabinet. So you're like sleeping like a Serbian war criminal for a week. And
yeah, I slept on that bitch. I remember that.
Oh yeah. And then I think I was sick enough that I was just feeling super cold, because I was freezing. So I had Claire surreptitiously ask for more and more blankets, until I ended up with like 6 blankets so I could actually be warm.
That's weird for you, because you're never cold. You sleep with your house at like 65, don't you?
It's 71 now, but yeah, I mean, I generally like it very cold, but I was so, like, I didn't eat. I had like one thing from a vending machine a day for a week. And because the first day I went down to the hospital cafeteria, and my tired dumbass got the sushi, and which I think precipitated my whole fecal crisis. But yeah, it was just, and then, so the worst thing of it is, right, so we have all the lactation consultants and the nurses coming in to help us figure out what to do with the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And so they kept giving me shit, because they thought that I wasn't doing anything. Even though it would be like, I would be holding her until like 10 minutes before they came in for hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would be like, Claire, I have to go to the bathroom, because I've ruined all of my pair of boxers that I came in the hospital with. I had to get 2 different boxer deliveries from my parents. And so they would come in, they like glare at me and be like, yeah, just make sure that you get in some daddy time.
Oh man.
I'm like, bitch, shut up. I am doing my fucking best here, dying on the Oregon Trail while taking care of my baby.
There is a little bit of an assumption, I think, sometimes, that like the dad just isn't nearly as involved, or they like, it's so weird, because it's like, just because they didn't see you holding Flora, right, they're like, oh, guess you're not going to be that involved, Dad. And it's like, bitch, yeah. I'm so involved in my child's life. It's like, it's absurd. Like, I know everything that's going on with that kid, and I'm always like, I mean, I'm a primary caregiver now. Like, I'm actually like a stay-at-home dad, because all like SAK basically isn't operating. We're not running any events. I'm basically just a stay-at-home dad now.
Yeah, it's a stupid assumption to make, but whatever, fuck them. I'm taking care of my daughter. That's all that matters to me. So
Exactly, yeah, for sure. So how has it been, like, being a dad for the first month? Like, you're in the lack of sleep phase, right?
yeah, I mean that's not too far off from normal, but it's definitely, we're trying to figure out some sort of schedule because I do have to work. I mean, I guess I could quit for a year, but I really don't want to do that. I would like to buy a house at some point, so I basically take her between like 9 and 2 a.m. and then to give Claire some sleep, and then I sleep, I work, I take her when I can during the workday. We're trying to figure it out, but it's definitely tough. Like I think, and maybe this is something we have a more ongoing discussion about, but I think there's a lot of things that you take for granted during your non-child life that having a child puts in a very stark perspective. Like, you do not understand how much time you're wasting doing a lot of stuff until you have a kid and you don't have time to do anything anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, we can dive into that shit right now, because that has been my life for the last 2 years, man. Like, I never realized. I mean, so it was interesting because, like, the last couple months before Dax was born, I basically was spending all of my time playing video games as much as I could, because I was like, I know that once he's born, the opportunities are going to be few and far between to actually sit down and grind, But even then I didn't realize it hasn't just been the video games, because I've found ways to, like, stay engaged with that hobby, like Twitch streaming now and everything, and just trying to sneak it in when I can. It's been the things that I wish I had done that I didn't do more before Dax was born. I mean, like, things like, I have a desperate urge to just go up to a cabin somewhere for a week, completely alone.
Oh yeah. It's been a year since I've been fishing or shooting or camping, and I feel like I'm missing. Like, I never felt a pressing need to do it super hard when I didn't have Flora, and now that I can't, I'm like, God damn it, the only thing I want to do in the world right now is, like, go up to Flagstaff or that area that we went for your uncle's cabin or whatever.
Pine, yeah.
Go to Pine Top and go hiking, or just go to a Roosevelt Lake and go fishing or something,
Yeah. Well,
to enjoy the outdoors.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, the nice thing is, like, my uncle has that cabin, and my parents actually just bought a cabin this week. Up in Heber.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I know a couple people who've got cabins up there. It seems like a cool place.
It's a great spot, and my parents basically said, like, once it's all set up, like, we can use it anytime. So we'll find a weekend. You, me, and Ken are gonna go up there, and we're gonna go and just enjoy ourselves, dude. Yeah, it's so weird, and Kimmy hates it because she's just like, where is this sudden need that you have to, like, go to the woods? Like, what the fuck? Like, you didn't ever do this before. Why didn't you do this before Dax was born? And I was like, I just never realized how bad I needed it, because I would get my alone time when it was just Kimmy and I. Like, I would have time to myself. I had the flexibility. I would go camping every once in a while, or I would go, like, we would all go shooting, or we would even just get together and play D&D. And now it's just like, I don't have that at all. And because it's been so long since I've had even a modicum of that, it's like, all I want to do is just go and be alone. I literally just want to lock myself in a cabin in the woods for a week, not talk to anybody, and just have some quiet.
Yeah, and especially now, like, I'm working 100% remote, which would seem great on its face, but, like, I get cabin fever real bad, and now I have a fever to go to a cabin instead of being cooped up in this fucking house. Like,
yeah,
someday.
Yeah, Kimmy and I finally we cracked, and our friend, Randy, our friend, he has a spot up in Flagstaff, and he posted on Thursday, he posted a Instagram video of him and his dog on their back patio, and it was 70 degrees in the middle it was like 4 p.m. It was 70 degrees and it was raining, and I just texted him. I was like, dude, please let Kimmy and I come up for the weekend. Like, we have to get out of the house. And he was like, yeah, shit, man, just come on up. And so we went up there and stayed. We went up Saturday and came back yesterday, but we were just like, fuck it, like, we can't we can't stay in our house anymore. We just can't do it. We have to go somewhere else. And so we went up there and, broke quarantine a little bit, but our friends are, they're all like, they're doing like what they should be doing. They're basically just immediate family only. They're not going out or anything like that. So we felt comfortable going up there. So you're having a baby girl in the strangest fucking time, brother. Let me tell you, like,
yep.
What a weird goddamn world we're living in. It is absolutely insane. I mean, what was it like going to the hospital in the middle of all of this?
Oh my God, it was ridiculous. But what are you gonna do? I mean, there's only allowed to be one other person but Claire in the room at a time, and I basically could not leave. So like I didn't have my Synthroid and I didn't have my CPAP and I could not go get them.
They literally they wouldn't let you leave the hospital once you entered?
Well, if I left, I wouldn't be able to come back in. So functionally speaking, yes, because obviously I'm not going to just leave Claire to rot in a negative 65-degree fucking hospital room. But
did they give you a test when you got there?
No. They were only, I think they wouldn't even let you in if you had symptoms to the main area. I think you would have to go to emergency for that. But I mean, yeah, it's misery, but I think it would have been misery either way. So it's a bit immaterial to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the hospital is not a good experience no matter what you do. And from what I've heard, like, it seems like the maternity wards are pretty cleared off. Like, it's still like a normal maternity ward. Like, it's not like you go in there and there's bodies all over the place and shit. Like,
well, I think it's funny because the nurses were all talking about like, oh, it's Friday, so there's so many people coming in for pregnancies. It's our busiest day. I'm like, all right. And then we get up to the maternity ward, and if you were to like split the maternity floor, the fourth floor, into quarters, we were the only person in our quarter. I didn't see anybody else. And then I think there was like one person in each other quarter. And so they're all talking about what a rush they're in to do stuff. I'm like, what are you talking about? There's like 2 nurses per room here. There's no one else in the building. But and then our luck, by the way, they're building a whole like another building over there, and they just decided to restart construction when we got into that room, and they work at night. So it was like being in Guantanamo Bay with my baby and my wife.
Yeah,
like,
I bet, with the fluorescent lights too.
Oh my gosh, dude, it was so
it's so exhausting. I've never been as tired as I was during those first. I mean, so like obviously for us, like as you know, Dax was in the NICU for the first 2 weeks. Thankfully he came out and he's fine. All those complications have cleared up. But we spent the first 2 weeks. We got in there and thinking like within 72 hours we'd be heading home with our baby. No, for 2 weeks every day we drove down to the hospital. Like, we drove a 30-minute drive to the hospital every day and spent the whole afternoon in the NICU with him, then went home without him every night to cry ourselves to sleep because we didn't have our baby. And so then we finally were just like, it'll be so great when he's home. And then he came home, and for the next month, I was more exhausted than I've ever been in my entire goddamn life. Like, I remember almost falling asleep on the freeway multiple times because, like, I took like 2 weeks. I took the week before he was born off and the week after he was born. So I stretched it out to about 3 weeks. But after that, I had to go back to work. And of course, like Smash Ultimate had just come out. And so the company was blowing up. We were running events like all over the valley, and we hadn't quite hired people on yet. I remember like almost falling asleep multiple times on the freeway, like driving around because I was so tired.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I told Claire, like, whatever day they tell us that we're going to leave, you have to let me get like 6 hours of sleep before we leave. Because if I am not driving my baby home, if I feel like I'm putting her life in danger just by being behind the wheel, that's not acceptable. Yeah. So worked out, but I definitely, I think we spent like 3 weeks and I didn't go anywhere aside from to the grocery store like twice because I did not want to be driving when my sleep schedule was so massacred. But
yeah. All right. Put a pause on it. I think something's going on with Dax. I'll be right back. All right, we're back. Hey. All right. Dax got his leg stuck in his crib. So yeah.
Oh, the joys of fatherhood.
Yeah. I mean, wait till she gets mobile, dude. Like, it's
Oh,
hard.
she climbs me.
Does she really?
Oh yeah. She
Wow.
will not stop moving. It's very frustrating because when it's 1 a.m. and I'm just like rocking back and forth like I'm Lenny from Of Mice and Men. I just want her to stop moving, but she's just punching me in the neck and trying to climb up my body and stuff her head into my throat and choke me out.
Oh
So
my god. Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's I don't know which was I think it's like in order, it's probably the newborn phase, like the first 2 months of just like pure exhaustion's the worst. Then after that, it's like once they get mobile, like the last year has been well, I mean, it's been about 6 months that he's really been on the move. And it's like especially when they first get on the move, you don't have everything baby proofed necessarily. And so they just start getting into shit that you don't expect them to. And they're climbing on stuff and they're falling off things. And it's like super stressful.
So how does he do with Penny, or how does Penny do with him? I should say.
Penny does really well with him. He does terribly with Penny. He is like really mean to her. Like not intentionally, he just doesn't know what he's doing. And so like she's like super fluffy and like she'll lay there and he'll go over and just like lay on top of her and he like rolls all over her while she's trying to sleep. And for a while she'll be okay with it, but after like he does that enough times, like he interrupts her nap enough times, she gets annoyed. But she's you know how she is. She's very like very calm, very chill, has never snapped at him or had any problems. I think she has barked at him one time because he really pushed her over the edge. But other than that, she's like, all she wants to do is sleep. She's like, I never get to sleep anymore. This kid just fucking crawls all over me every day, all day. Like we used to feel bad because we would work all day, and so we'd leave her alone. And now if we leave the house, she's like, thank God. Like we feel like she's got to just be so happy to have some time to herself.
Oh yeah, yeah. May we have a crate in Claire's room, so there was a point where we were all sleeping in there, and Flora will put her in the bassinet, and she will only sleep on top of me or on top of Claire or in this like Playmobil dome thing that we have for downstairs. She will not sleep in the pack and play that I spent $120 on.
Nope. Yeah, they don't do that.
But when she cries, May is, she just runs up to the crib and sits there and stares at her like, what can I do to help you?
Mm-hmm.
She hasn't snapped yet, thankfully, because she's a savage when she gets angry. But she seems to be good so far. She punches May in the face. Because I'll be holding her on the couch and May jumps up there with me. And I'll just like move her over to say hello, and May will lick her hand, and she'll be like,
"Yeah, yeah." Dax likes to bop Penny on the nose. He'll run up and be like this, because he thinks it's so funny. We're like, "Stop hitting her! Oh my god!" And Kimmy gets really bent out of shape about it because she's just like, "Oh my god, he's a serial killer! Like, he's punching our dog in the face. He's gonna grow up to be a serial killer."
Next thing you know, he'll be staking squirrels to the ground and flaying them alive.
God. So he's yeah. So her thing is when he cries really bad, when he gets super hysterical, she has to go and hide, and it's been like doubly worse since quarantine because now like she just can't get away. Like
no escape. Right.
Yeah. Like before, it's like we would go to work, Dax would go to daycare, she'd have the day. Like now, it's just like every day, like all day, he's just after, and he loves dogs and he loves her in particular, so he is after her all the time. And we have his like play yard set up in front of one of our couches, so that couch is pretty much inaccessible, and she'll climb up there just to get away from him, and then he'll be like, doggy, and he like tries to get up on the couch and we won't let him. It's crazy.
Oh shit.
Yeah, he's talking a lot too, man. He's adding like new word, like a couple new words almost, it seems like every day. Like
that's awesome.
The last month from 18 to 19 months, I think he added like 15 new words or something. Like
when are they supposed to start talking? I don't know any of that milestone shit. So
yeah, it's super variable. I didn't know it either, but Kimmy was like, Kimmy had an app for it there's an app called, I think, the Wonder Years, and it does milestones on a weekly basis and stuff. So it kind of gives you an idea of like where they should be at developmentally. So that actually helped because I didn't know jack shit about any of that. And every week Kimmy would be like, "Oh, this is what's happening to him." I'm like, "Good. I'm glad that I know this now because I would not have known where to get this information." But he started when he was, God, I don't even know. I think he was a year was when he started some babbling and some minor talking, but it's only been in the last like 4 months that he's like really started like putting sentences together and saying stuff. Like he says like all kinds of stuff now. Like we had the most human interaction with him the other day. It was really weird. Like this was a couple weeks ago. He brought his he got a pouch from the pantry because he can open the pantry and go in and get stuff from the pantry now, like he like just whenever he wants. And so he gets a pouch from the pantry, takes it to Kimmy, and he goes, "Mama, I want this." And then she's like, she takes it and she's like, "What are you saying?" He's like, "Please." And then she opens it, gives it to him, and he's like, "Thank you," and walks away.
The circle is complete.
It was fucking freaky, dude. I was like, oh my, it was so weird. I was in the kitchen. I was like, what just happened? Like, it was like a full human interaction, man.
Yeah, so my niece and my nephew they're both talking a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And Owen's, he's in preschool and all this, so he's learning to do his counting and all this. But I'd say probably like 2 months ago, we were at my parents' house and she was there, my niece, and I go into the bathroom to help her wash her hands, and then she turns the light off and she looks up at me and she's like, "It's dark in here," and then just walks away. I was like, oh God. Jokes and jokes and jokes.
Yeah, dude. She's like, "You're the first offering of the week." She runs away. Yeah, dude. Kids are creepy.
They're creepy, and it's funny because it's the cutest creepiness you'll ever see because they have they don't know. I mean, They're just like, sounds that have inferred meaning to other people. Beep, bop, boop,
Yeah. Dax says stuff like he says please and thank you all the time now. He said he asked for more of things. He loves bananas, so he always is just like, "Nana, Nana, Nana." He also likes cheese, so he'll say, "Cheese, please," when he wants cheese. And it's funny because if one of us burps or if he farts, he'll be like, "Excuse you."
excuse you to myself.
Yeah, literally, he'll rip ass and he'll be like, "Excuse you." Like, wait a second.
That's another thing that, if you're a new parent, beware, because your child will sound like they're a 55-year-old alcoholic that's been drinking for 30 years.
Yes.
Like, I will be holding Flora, and I will just hear and feel in my hand, because I'm holding her, the wettest explosion, and it's so loud, and she's just looking at you like,
she's like, "Yeah." Have you had a total blowout yet?
That's the only way she poops. So
it's just old
I don't know
blowouts only.
I would say the last 2 days she started having ones where she poops and we don't know, but up until like very recently, you knew when she pooped because you would hear it from the next room. So
oh my God.
she takes after her daddy. So
breastfed babies, dude. She's still all breastfed right now, right?
No.
Oh, you started some formula?
We had to, because she just would not. I mean, and this is apparently I was the same way when I was a baby, according to my parents, but she just would not deal with that. So Claire pumps and we make formula, and I hate it because if you look at the ingredients of the formula, it's just fucking corn syrup with stuff in it. So
really?
Powdered corn syrup. Yeah, it's just candy water basically.
What kind of formula are you getting?
It's Similac. We have to give her the sensitive because she got some real stomach issues again, like her daddy. So
wow. So yeah, you're in the same boat as Kimmy and I then, because we had a difficult time with Dax and we had to move to formula pretty early, and we gave him sensitive, but it was weird because he had really bad throw up issues, like, and it was only with Kimmy for whatever reason, but he would I would be at work and she would call me and she's like, he won't stop puking. He's just puked all over me like 4 times in the last couple hours, like. And once we started him on real foods, that stopped. So like
Like, you mean like baby, like pureed carrots kind of thing, real foods?
yeah, like actual foods. Like once we got him off the formula, it stopped. But we had to put him on formula, like aggressive amounts of formula, because he was failing to thrive. Because Kimmy really pushed for him, like she wanted him to be breast milk only, and so he did a little formula early on, and then once he was breastfeeding more regularly, but then there was something going on, and he wasn't getting enough nutrients, and so he was like really underweight, like to the point where we took him to the doctor, and the doctor was basically just like, "What the fuck is happening?" The doctor was like, "You need to pump him full of formula now, like he is in trouble." And then when we were pumping him full of formula, he was just throwing up all the time. But once we got him onto real food, that stopped. He just eats like a garbage disposal. You put anything in front of him and he'll eat it, and he only throws up if he eats too fast and like doesn't chew it well enough.
Yeah.
So, but don't feel shame, and tell Claire not to feel any shame. There is some major horse shit around breastfeeding. I fucking hate it, dude. I hate it so much. Like there's so much pressure on women to breastfeed, and where they like feel bad if they're not breastfeeding, like they're bad parent, like they're a bad mom or something.
Well, I mean, it is clear though, like it is the optimal case to only breastfeed, or at least only provide breast milk, right?
Yes.
Because that's how you pass on to your immune system. It's got the best balance of nutrition. But to feel bad about your baby not making it possible for you is stupid, because your baby is not making it possible for you. The word "not making it possible" should make it clear that you shouldn't feel bad about that. So
yeah, I mean,
I tell that.
Yeah, like I think like breast milk is obviously like insane. It's really just like an elixir, actually, like with all the properties that it has, and it is really good for them. But there's like this movement of like you know, like it's like the natural mom movement, who are just like, you know, well, if you choose not to breastfeed, like obviously you should breastfeed as much as you can, but there are many women who after like a month or two, they're like, I'm good. I breastfed for 2 months. I want to move to formula. And they like shame those women. They're like, oh, you're not breastfeeding. Oh, okay. I you know, it's got magical properties, and my child is 4 years old and I still breastfeed him. But like,
yeah, my child is the king of the veil, and he likes to throw people through the moon door.
Yeah. So I think what bothers me about it is that it really should be kind of to each their own. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with breastfeeding your child to like whatever age you want, but it's like, I don't think you should shame other mothers for not doing it.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is your baby healthy. So if you need to, because like in our case, I would say that at least 50% of Flora's diet is breast milk, and then the other 50%, because you know when you pump, you just do not. Claire at least doesn't produce enough. So you know, I think it's more she doesn't get the opportunity to pump enough because I have to work for 8 straight hours, and you're supposed to do it every couple hours, but we have to, you know, supplement with formula because I mean we didn't even, I think her first food was from a bottle. I don't think we were even able to breastfeed her right away because Claire was knocked out from the C-section. So
that would make sense. Yeah.
That started the ball rolling to Doom World, where she just will not.
Yeah.
She will not have it. So
you'll get through, dude. Once you get to solid foods, it gets so much better because they just like, I mean, I guess there's a lot of kids are picky eaters. Dax will just eat pretty much anything, but it gets a lot easier when they're eating stuff that like where they don't have to be attached to the mother's body to get it, or you know, you don't have to extract it from your body to give it to them. I don't know. I feel like we're way happier now that we're past the breastfeeding phase and the formula phase, and we're on to real foods.
It's just a simplification, because I mean, there's just so much rigmarole into getting them to latch right and keeping them on there, and you gotta, you know, make sure you stroke their cheek to keep them drinking, because they'll just fall asleep.
Yep.
So,
they'll just sit there and be like,
yeah. Well, I mean, shit. Even when I'm giving Flora the bottle, I'll just, you know, be holding it there, and she'll just be like, for like 5 minutes, she'll be asleep with the thing in her mouth. I'm like, can we speed this along? Daddy's got to poop. Like, come on now.
It's amazing. It's amazing how they just don't like. It's tough because that time period is so difficult because you're so exhausted, but at the same time, it's kind of the most magical, where like all they do is just sleep and eat and poop. And they're just like such simple creatures. All they want to do is sleep and cuddle with you and eat, and then have you change their diaper. Like, that's all they want.
Well, and they're not bothered by that much either. Like
No.
Flora, we can have the TV on. She'll be in her little dome thing, and we can be talking, and someone will ring the doorbell, and so May goes ballistic and starts barking really loud, and she just sleeps through it all.
Yeah.
You pick her up, and she'll like
Yeah, she
fall
does
back.
that thing.
Yeah.
That's the defense mechanism, dude. Like, I'm pretty sure this is bro science, so don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure that move is like a defense mechanism to like make themselves seem bigger than they are, because that's the only defense that they have.
Yeah, it's some I forget the name of it, but it's like the something reflex.
Yeah.
You know, I wonder what they theorize that that's for, because I wonder if there is equivalent in other mammals or in other animals for something like that, where if you're a sleeping lion cub and something startles you awake, if you're like, ah, and then wake just to save yourself.
Yeah, well, babies have really sharp nails too. Like, I don't know if you've had.
Oh my god!
Like, dude, they those things are like daggers. They're so sharp.
Well, they're so thin. They're like one atom thin, and so they can cut through any material with no resistance, including your own neck and skin. Like, yeah. Oh my god!
Flora's out there cutting diamonds.
Well, when we first got home from the hospital, she got me like right here, right in like this interior socket area of my eye, and so I just had like a Kakashi scar for like a week.
Sharingan.
So, how is Sack World? What is Sack in a time of COVID like? I've seen doing some stuff, but I haven't talked to you guys that much. So
it's been weird. So in March, so our last event we did was like March 16th or something. We were supposed to have an ascension on the 21st of March, and we had to cancel it a couple of days before because, like, it was so weird. It's like Ken joined the company full time back in November of last year. He left KPMG, came out, joined the company. We were working together every day, and then at the beginning of March, it's just like you started hearing like COVID-19, like, and I guess you'd heard a little bit about it before that, but not much. And then I was like, there's 100 cases in America. Now there's 500. Now there's 1,000 cases. And then we're kind of like I remember like we spent probably like 2 weeks just sitting there at the venue trying to figure out like, do we need to shut down? Like, what are we going to do? And then finally the governor's shutdown order came through. So we shut everything down, and then we kind of just were like, well, I guess we're going to wait this out. And we had the venue at the time still. And so we reached out to our landlord and said, hey, like we're totally shut down. We don't know how long this is going to last. Is there anything we can do for an accommodation for rent? Can we tack it on to the end? Can we do like a reduced rent to just whatever your costs are so that you can at least get paid? And our landlord was like, you're gonna pay the full amount, or you're gonna pay, or I'm gonna sue you for the full amount of your remaining lease. And we were like, I see. So we left and bailed on that lease. And luckily, due to some legal things, we didn't have to pay the remainder of the lease. We were able to just get out. But it's like we haven't run an event since March. I mean, we have our first in-person event coming up on August 7th and 8th. It's the Game On Expo Mega Drive-In. It's happening at Westworld in Scottsdale. Have you
Westworld?
It's like I've never been actually, but I think it's like a big like Wild West recreation kind of place.
Okay.
Let me look it up on the Google here. See what it says. Westworld,
the land of androids.
Yeah, I know. That's what it makes me think of. Like, hope you guys, no one's gonna get COVID because it's gonna be all androids. But it's like a giant like yeah, it's a multi-use event facility. Okay. Yeah, it's literally just like a giant, kind of like a fairground.
Okay.
I don't even know if there's any Western theme to it. I think it's just called Westworld.
just they're like, what's a name that people know? Westworld. All right, got Perfect. It.
Yeah, so there's like a arena. There's halls. There's looks like there's a racing track. They do a lot of Western stuff. They're like, I think they do bull riding and stuff, like rodeos.
Rodeo.
Yeah. Cool. but it's got a huge space, and so it's going to have we're going to do a drive-in gaming event. So basically it'll be like a drive-in movie where there'll be like geek culture movies playing on these gigantic LED screens, and then we're going to be running a Smash tournament in a designated section of the venue. So it'll be outdoors. The setups are going to be 6 feet apart. They'll all be head-to-head configuration, so people don't have to sit next to each other. Everyone's going to have to wear masks. We're going to have to sanitize the stations. It's going to be very interesting.
It's going to be, very inefficient.
Yeah, but yeah, we're fucked, dude. It's like, if I'm being 100% honest, dude, the business just is not functional at this point. Not how it used to be. Now, we got lucky with a couple of things right after COVID hit. We got that Suns contract. I don't know if you saw what we did with the Phoenix Suns. We got contracted. So my brother-in-law works for the Phoenix Suns in their social media team, and right after the Suns canceled their season, my brother went to the executives of the Suns team and was like, "Why don't we try playing out the remainder of the season on the scheduled game days, but stream it to Twitch and play it in NBA 2K?" And so.
That's pretty creative.
It was. And so like I found out he was doing this from Kimmy, and I hit him up. I was like, "Hey, my company specializes in this. Let's see if we can help you out." Got together with them. We ended up signing a contract to play the remainder of the season for them on NBA 2K and stream it on Twitch and everything. And it was pretty wild because we were just like, for one thing, the NBA schedule is made for people on cocaine, I'm pretty sure. Because they literally play a game every other day during the season.
Yep.
It's insane. But like, we were working with like famous athletes, like players from the Suns, like Mikal Bridges, Frank Kaminsky. We're working with we even worked with some NFL athletes like Keenan Allen, who's from the San Diego Chargers. Like, it was really crazy getting into like the professional sports world. So we got lucky with that. And that was enough that we were like, okay, we could probably make it to the rest of this year. If like everything goes downhill, we think we'll probably be okay. And then we picked up a couple of other things doing events for the city of Chandler, the town of Gilbert. But we hit June, and everyone was kind of like, all the places were like, okay, we're going to start reopening. So a lot, like every organization, every city, they all kind of started focusing on how they're going to reactivate their businesses and reopen their cities. And then it got shut down again. And so we've been in this limbo for 2 months of just like, we don't know what's coming next. And so we're just kind of like holding out. But that's why I'm doing Twitch streaming now and stuff in the evenings, because I honestly believe that COVID is not going away unless the administration and all of the administrations from the state to the national level get their shit together and actually try to like come up with a coordinated effort to like do widespread testing and contact tracing and like get everything under control, if it's even possible anymore, given how out of hand it's gotten. I think we're living with this for probably a year, like at least another year, which I guess it's July already and we've been in this for 5 months. But yeah, I think probably like a year from now, we're still, maybe we get out of it by then. And so I've kind of like, I personally believe content creation is the way of the future for the time being. Like, people need content. People are consuming content faster than they ever had before because they're sitting at home with nothing to do, especially Zoomers, especially kids like these days, teenagers. They literally can't leave their houses. They're not going to school. Even if they have online school, like I heard a statistic that like 40% of them are not showing up to their online school.
Well, and why would you? I mean, the only thing that even keeps kids going to regular school is truancy laws, and that doesn't matter if your school's online. Like, they can't force you to be on the internet. So
yeah, so we're so everyone subscribe to twitch.tv/SAK Gaming TV. Drop a Twitch Prime if you have one available, because we're riding this bitch, man.
Well, so it kind of begs a question though. Like, you look at, like, take something like Warzone, right? COD Warzone.
Yeah.
Just because that was like the thing I was doing before the baby came. I feel like there was enough of a scene there. Like, are you doing anything online? Like, is there not a way you can do online tournaments in the same vein as what you have? I mean, obviously for Smash, that's a little more complex because it's a Nintendo game, and thus the internet ability of it is not exactly primo 100%.
Yeah, pretty much.
But just something along those lines to at least keep the the tournament side of the business going while you fill the void with content creation and whatever Ken's doing. I don't know what's up with him, but
He just got another job. Actually, he had to go back to work.
Where is he working?
He is working at a valuation firm. So like doing valuations for companies like that are selling and stuff. Actually, I think it's actually really interesting. We'll see.
That is really cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, he said he might be starting as soon as tomorrow, but yeah, it got to the point where we were like, because originally we're like, okay, like with the way this year was lining up, we thought we would be okay with the two of us. Like we would make enough that he'd be able to stay on full time. But then all of our convention contracts got canceled. All of our, everything got canceled. And so we were just like, well, things seems like we're just going to have to kind of, wait it out. So he's going back to work for now. But in terms of answer your question about online stuff, we piloted some online stuff early on, and we have found that free online events do very well. We get a lot of people. Like we did our usual Thursday night weekly. We did a free version of it, and 112 people signed up for it. Then we did a paid version with like a venue fee that would like go to us to help keep us afloat, and 2 people signed up for it. So people are just not as interested in paying for online events. Online events do well, but they, in my opinion, they usually have to be free, or there has to be like a big catch in terms of like a prize pool or something major that people would want to pay. Or like, I think there's a lot of opportunity for sub tournaments, like sub only tournaments. If we were to run those for SAK, where it's like if you're a sub to the channel, then that's the only way you participate. So people are, I think, more open to doing something like that. But it's like the Overwatch problem all over again. Back when we were trying to do Overwatch in 2016. When it first came out, we tried to get in on it early, and we just found that no one wanted to pay to compete in online tournaments. It just wasn't a thing.
That's interesting. I wonder if it's just like people look at doing something online and they're like, well, YouTube is free, so why would I can just go play the multiplayer for free. Why would I do your thing?
I think that's what it is. And with Smash in particular, the online is so terrible that like you wouldn't want to pay to be in an online event because it's awful. It's so bad. Like it's so laggy. Like some characters are literally like way better online than they are like, than they would be offline because they can take advantage of lag and stuff. And it's kind of a mess. So there are online tournaments going all the time. We actually there's a free Wednesday night Melee event called Wired Weekly Wednesdays, which Melee now, I don't know if you've heard the news, has better netcode than Smash Brothers Ultimate does.
That doesn't surprise me in the least, because I feel like Nintendo really did a lot of stuff right in the GameCube era. And then the newer, like, I feel like they did the whole touchscreen thing, and somewhere along the way they're like, well, you have to sacrifice everything else for the Switch screen and the Wii screen. Yeah. Because the internet, the network stuff, like coming from a lifelong Pokemon player, even when they started, putting Pokemon on Wi-Fi enabled things, the internet experience of a Nintendo game has just never been on par with any other console, including the PC. I don't know what it is. They just always I don't know if it's like a Japanese thing, because Phantasy Star Online 2 is the same, where it's just this frustrating, overly complicated network experience.
Yep.
But just cannot figure it out. But the GameCube is also so much more simplistic that I feel like they were so much more lean that they were able to squeeze a lot more blood from that stone, whereas now they're flush with power. And so they just like, who cares about netcode? Just the processor will take care of it. Like,
yeah, well, it's interesting. So the way that they gave Melee online, right? Because Melee was not originally an online game, but this group called particularly one brave soul named Fizzy, who created something called Slippy, which is basically what he did is he basically hacked Melee and made it so that you could transmit the inputs of your controller. So you'd be playing the game like you'd be playing it on a GameCube, or you have to play it on a Wii in order to use Slippy. So you'd be playing on a Wii, and you could transfer the inputs to a save file, and it was just the inputs. And then what you would do is open it on an emulator on Dolphin, and it would replay those inputs, and you effectively have a replay of Melee. So he took that, changed it so that you could send the inputs live, and now you no longer need a capture card to capture Melee. You can just stream Melee from a Wii directly to your PC and capture it that way. Then he took it and made it so that he added so that you could have an online component, and not only that, you have online and you have rollback netcode. So if there's a lag spike, the game fills in the frames and you have seamless gameplay. You could be in Arizona playing with someone in Australia and you have no lag.
That's all. Yeah, man. I'm honestly surprised. I guess, when did Melee come out? Was that one of like the first games on the GameCube? It can't have been, right?
It was 2000 and the Melee community will kill me if I don't know this. I believe it was 2001 because it's 2000. It's 19 years old, I think. 2001. I'm gonna call it. Let's see. It was 2001, November 21st, 2001.
So I don't know if you had a GameCube, but if you'll recall, you had to buy a thing to hook into the back in order to even connect it to the internet.
Yep.
Right? Like, oh man.
Yeah, that was.
Do you remember the era of the N64 expansion card for the doubling the memory from 64 to 128 megs and stuff?
128 megs. Well, that's the thing. That was like goes back to that Nintendo thing you were talking about, where it's like, just the only console of that generation that shipped with internet built in was the Xbox. The PS2 didn't have it. You had to buy an expansion thing for it, like a huge. Remember that thing? Remember the Weed port?
You would big brick in the back.
Yeah, you would open the back of the PS2, and there was a little box, and that was where the expansion, like the network expansion card, would go. Except people would use it to stash weed. Which happened to me at GameStop once. We literally had a guy trade in a PS2 once, and we opened it, and it was just a fucking fat bag of weed in there. And he was like, "Oh shit, thanks, I forgot about that."
Whoops.
And then the GameCube had the same thing. You had that, like, Nintendo was a little bit more artful about their design for it, at least, where you had a plastic thing that inserted into the bottom, and you would take that out and then replace that with the net card. But you still had to like buy an extra net card. That's why Xbox had a huge jump on the competition for online.
Well, and it's just, I have to wonder, because it was either like a money-making scheme where Nintendo was like, okay, we'll sell the ability to connect to the internet separately from the GameCube to make more money in an era where no one plays games on the internet. Or they built the GameCube and then were like, someday we may connect it to the internet, so I will build a perfectly modeled place to hook up the ability to connect to the internet for later.
I think that's what it was. I think they were like, the internet might come. Well, we'll put this in here but make it look nice. Make it like we don't want these ugly internet attachments. Like,
make it tasteful.
Yeah. Have you played the re-release for Phantasy Star?
So, like a week before Flora, or no, 2 weeks before Flora came, me and my brother-in-law and Ken and one of my brother-in-law's friends all downloaded Phantasy Star Online 2 when it came out on Windows. Mm-hmm. Okay, because it's free. And man, was that a frustrating experience, because you have to get it through the Microsoft Store, and then you have to create a PSO account, and then in order to add people to your friends list, you have to like do it through your Xbox Live account first so that they'll show up in the game. But you better not have a chat window with your friend open with voice chat blocked, or else your friend won't show up in your friends list to be like in the community to be added. So me and Ken spent like 2 hours just trying to get into a party to play the game, because he had opened up the Xbox Live thing and chatted me, and I muted him because we were on Discord. Mm-hmm. But that meant that I couldn't add him to my party in the game.
So they really kept it. It was a faithful recreation.
Yes, it was so annoying. And then I just remember when because I played that game on the GameCube forever and a day ago, right? Yeah. And so I was super excited to see it come out. And the amount of frustration, like I'm 30 years old. I don't have 2 hours to spend trying to get into a game. If I can't just be in the game, I'm out. So
Yep.
I don't play it. But there's also like a 50 gig download for a game that does not have graphics that warrant that big of a download.
50 gigs?
I think it's like 11 gigs and then it unpacks bigger or something.
For a game that used to fit on a GameCube disc?
Well, PSO2 did not.
I thought PSO2 was on both. Was on all three consoles.
Was it?
I don't know. Let's find out.
I don't remember.
Google. Was originally released for the... Let's see, PSO2.
Released only in Japan, but on one console.
Yeah, because it shows... Well, wasn't there one before this, though? Because there was one on July 4th, 2012.
Well, so they did a PSO in Japan. PSO2 was Japan only until very recently when it came to the US, like last year or something.
Okay.
Or this year. So there should be like a big gap between releases, and I don't know what the 2012 release consoles were.
Yeah, they were PS4. It was like PS4 and all those ones.
Yeah,
and Phantasy Star Online. So, either way, an old game doesn't seem like it should have that, like you said, graphics that would warrant 50 gigabyte download. I mean, Call of Duty is an 90 gig download.
Well, yeah, it was like you downloaded it. It was like 11 gigs off the Microsoft Store, and then it installed bigger. But it's like for graphics that look like it belonged on the PS2, it certainly did not deserve to be that big. So
for sure. So how are things for you with COVID?
Well, I mean, I don't know how much I can actually say because of the PIO rules, but I think we've been working remote for, a long time. And a lot of people on my team worked remote anyways, because, they live up in like Paradise Valley and stuff. And so otherwise they're having to drive on the 303 south for like 2 hours to get into work or whatever. But, we've been working remote a lot, so not much has changed. And honestly, like the stuff that I'm doing now, I need a very lightweight, code-enabled text editor and a browser, and I can work anywhere. Like I could do my job from my phone if I really had to. But in terms of priorities, obviously, when this whole thing started, everything else got put on hold, which was kind of a pain because we had a lot of stuff that was like a few meetings from done, or just needed some more discussion or just a little more fine tuning or whatever. And that stuff gets put on hold because we're having this big reprioritization because we got all this grant money. And so they're trying to find ways to spend it. And I work in an IT department. If you give me like $1 million, I'm pretty sure I could run half of the technology there in the cloud somewhere forever, basically, because it's so cheap now. But I don't know. It's interesting. I took 5 weeks off for the baby, so this is my first week back, and I'm still just trying to like catch up on emails and stuff because it seems like a lot happened while I was away, but it didn't seem like a lot happened while I was away because I had 250 unread emails, and I think like 6 of them mattered. So
yeah. So what do you think of COVID, man? Like, what's your feel on the whole situation? So we haven't really even talked for any extended period of time since this whole thing began. And for those, we should go back so everyone knows, like, you're basically like my best friend. It's like you and Ken are my 2 best friends in the whole world. Like you mentioned at the beginning at the top of the episode, we've known each other for half of our lives at this point. I still remember the phone conversations we had when we were 15 and you had just met, or I guess we were 16.
I was 15.
Yeah, and you had just met Addison or Alex and Kenneth and Steven. And so like we were all talking about playing D&D, and that was like our first exposure to each other as we met and played D&D together. You were the DM. You ran the school, the ninja school.
Oh man, I was such a retard, man.
That was so good. The principal, dude, the dwarf character was the principal, the dwarf fighter.
Oh yeah. Oh man, that figurine is just legendary now.
Yep, I have it. I bet I can find it actually if I look for it. I see the bin over there.
The big old cardboard box.
So I mean, we used to like hang out literally every single day, like every single day.
Yeah.
We lived a stone's throw from each other. Like at one point, we were all in the same apartment complex. I could walk to your apartment in 1 minute.
Yep. One building over.
And now we're adults, so we went from seeing each other. It was so like the standard adult like trend, right? It was like we hang out every day, then we hang out every week, then it was every couple of weeks, then it was every couple of months. Now it's like we see each other like once every 6 months, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's definitely, I think towards the end of college, everyone's was kind of scrambling to get their lives in down one path or another, or whatever, and
just trying to figure it out.
Frustrated efforts, but I mean, we had a good run, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're still friends. We literally just pick up like nothing's happened. We haven't spoken in person in like 6 months, and you just pick up like nothing ever changed.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, so like, I'm curious about your opinion about how all of this has transpired. I mean, we're like, the world has just changed so drastically in the last 5 months.
Yeah, I mean, I have my particular opinions. I think part of it is overblown and part of it is justified, because like when you're seeing the rising case rate, which is what makes the news, but you're seeing a static or dropping death rate, it just makes me wonder if all of the I feel like there's no adequate way to measure whether the measures being taken are impacting things positively or negatively.
Yeah.
Because you have certain countries that have done nothing and they have not had that big of a problem. You've had some countries that did a lot and still have that big of a problem. And then you have in between where you've had like moderate measures and you've had not as bad, but still a problem, right? Like, I feel like we just don't have, I don't know if it's a lack of data. I don't know if it's a issue with modeling or just the overall strategy or what, but we don't seem to have a good way to understand how big a problem it is, in addition to like what measures we can do that actually have a reasonable effect that don't infringe too much on someone's ability to live their life. So
yeah,
at the end of the day, I mean, I'll always go for more freedom than less. So the idea of a lockdown gives me heartburn and makes me want to raise the black flag, but I never ran for office, so I can't really complain.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, so you're a libertarian, right? Is that how you self-identify, or still self-identify?
I don't know how I would self-identify, but I think that's the closest to, I think, not the Libertarian Party libertarians, but just a very small L libertarian kind of guy.
Yeah. Which is we always end up having really interesting conversations, I think, because I'm very much liberal, and like Ken has kind of always been in the middle-ish, but you always leaned more like, to use the kind of stupid labels, like you lean more right, I lean more left. Ken was always in the middle, it seemed like. But we always have really good conversations, and you always had really enlightening things to say about about government and government's role in things. So I always feel like we have good conversations where that is concerned.
It's a hallmark of a good friendship that, like, I am sure that you and I have very fundamental disagreements on a lot as it relates to, economics or politics or whatever, but I'm not going to excise you from my life for them. And I don't see you ever doing that for me. No. So that's friendship.
Yeah, man. You can have disagreements, and you can have like good intellectual conversation and talk about subjects that like, you don't agree on, and listen to each other's opinions.
Did my screen just go real yellow?
Yeah, you got like pretty yellow for a second, and then you didn't. So I don't know if it's because, I think it's where you're moving, the yellow light is coming in more. Whereas when you're closer, your tablet's reflecting off your face, so it's giving you more white light.
Okay.
So,
yeah, I see the little. Yeah.
What do you think about the government response?
I mean, I question in certain points if there should have been a government response. I think that a lot was done. I think there was a lot of assumptions made about what this was and what it was going to do. and there was not anywhere near enough data to support those assumptions, and there was no way to get it because, for example, you they like cleaned the lab out in China before we were allowed to go see, and they like sterilized an entire city basically to try and kill the virus. And so the primary point of its inception, which would have been the most reliable data aside from the I hesitate to say lucky cases of the cruise liners, right, that had the cases on there, so they were able to have a microcosms idea of how the things spreads, how rapidly, what are its effects or whatever. Like, I think there just wasn't enough information. And so in cases like that, if you ask the government to respond to a perceived crisis and they don't have enough information, they're just going to go whole hog on it. And that stuff does not sit well with me.
Yeah.
Like I said, like, a lockdown is not an acceptable solution to anything for me. You got to let people make their own decisions on how to keep themselves safe, right? Because at the end of the day, your best decisions are going to be about how to keep you safe, not necessarily other people, but most likely those are going to positively materially impact other people.
Yeah. So I mean, that kind of that brings up the argument that you see a lot of people have, like, making about, like, well, you should be concerned about the welfare of other people, not just yourself.
I mean, I think there's levels to that, right? Like, at the end of the day, and there's no way to avoid this, and no one can ever tell me different, you will always look out for yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
Then you will look out for your immediate family, your wife, your child. And, you can make an argument like, I will die for my child. I don't, right? Like,
Yeah.
you just do that. And so maybe your family in that regard goes first. Then it's your extended family, your friends. Then you're going to start caring about more macro level stuff like your neighborhood, your city or district, and right. It's this kind of pyramid that goes up.
Yeah.
And the notion is that by making my own decisions for my personal welfare and keeping myself safe and alive, are going to keep you safe and alive too, because I'm going to make sure I don't get the virus. And if I don't have it, I can't give it to you. Ergo, at least from me as a vector, you are safer. Correct?
Yeah.
Right. So, but I am sympathetic to the argument of sympathy, if that makes any sense. Like, obviously, some people have it within their moral structure or whatever to say it's important to have external compassion. I just think it's more efficient to have rational self-interest and then move outward from there. Make sure you're squared away and then help other people get squared away.
Yeah. Put your own mask on first, right? Like your own oxygen mask, then put your child's on.
Sure.
That kind of notion.
If you do your child's first, then maybe you aren't, become incapacitated and you can't help your wife. Like,
are
all
you
radiates out from you.
Are you anti-mask or reasonable mask or like pro-mask? I feel like there's kind of levels, right? Like, I feel like there's people who are just like, fuck masks, I'll never wear a mask. Masks are an infringement of my personal liberty. And then there's people who are like, I think I should wear a mask if I'm in a store, but if I'm out jogging, I don't think I need one. And then there's like, you should be wearing a mask in your home or something, to put it in an extreme. But
yeah, the people who are driving with their windows up and their masks on, which just gives me a laugh every time I see it. But
I always think that's a little confusing.
Well, yeah, it is. It is a symptom of a different disease. But personally, I don't care. Like, I am not in an age group that is like, I have a 0.0005% chance of that thing killing me. I'm not old enough, and I'm not have some other precipitating sickness that's going to put me in imminent danger. And a mask does not help you. It helps everyone else, because if you're going to get it, it's someone going to sneeze and you're going to walk into it. It's going to get in the mucous membrane in your eyeball or in your your ears or something. So if everyone else is wearing a mask, you technically don't have to. I would elect not to, but Claire wants me to. And because I'm a good husband, I will accede to her wishes in that regard. Not all the time. But if I'm going into, most places mandate that you wear them now anyway, right? So if you're going into the grocery store or the gas station or whatever, you don't have a choice, which that is a problem. That is an infringement of liberty, and it shouldn't be that way. But It's private business. They're welcome to put whatever restrictions on entry that they want. But if I'm going to a drive-through where they have a big old, plastic panel covering them,
They have the
and
blast
they have
shield.
masks on, yeah, they've got the splash guard and they've got their mask on, then why do I need a mask for? So.
Yeah. But that's the interesting thing. So you mentioned it's a private business, but they're doing it because they're mandated by the government, right? Like there's a government order, a state government order that says all businesses have to require a mask. So that.
And they cannot comply. I mean, at the end of the day, it is their choice. And if enough of them decided they were not going to comply, the government can't do anything about it. But they are complying. And, a grocery store is a regional, if not national endeavor, right? Like Safeway owned by Kroger that, there's a same thing as the Safeway with a different name somewhere else. They're all taking orders from the same master, right? So they're going to do the same thing.
Where do you think this vehement like anger about mask wearing comes from a certain group of people that are just so against it? They hate it. They just like they'll never wear a mask. They refuse. Like you mentioned, it's an infringement on their personal liberties, but they take that to like the extreme. Like, where do you think that comes from?
Well, I mean, I think it's simply that I personally, for myself, I agree with them. I don't want to wear a mask. I don't think anyone should be forced to wear a mask because I don't believe that anyone should be forced to do anything. But, I'm not a politician, and I'm not in any position of authority to tell someone they can or can't do something. So you do you. But I think at the end of the day, it's people who are just more vocal than me about disagreeing about the whole mask deal. So
do you think that, so this is tangentially related, talking about how people shouldn't be forced to or forced not to do things. Do you think that, I think we've discussed this before. Do you think that drugs should be legal?
I think generally speaking, yes, but I think that you are always going to see some form of legislation around them because they just have significant external, negative externalities. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that you should be totally fine to do heroin in your home, but if you do heroin and they get behind the wheel, I think we as a society have a problem because you are a time bomb waiting to harm somebody else, right? So, but at the same time, like, the negative externalities argument goes further into other things that I think should be completely unrestricted. And so I don't know. Like, that's my biggest problem with being so, freedom guy, is that I see my own internal inconsistencies about things. Because, like, personally, if you want to do drugs, you do you. I don't care. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like, if you do drugs and then you come to my house and kill me, then I have a problem, right? And it's directly related to the fact that I said, go and do drugs if you want to.
Yeah, but it's like, are the two related, right? Like, did the guy do drugs and then come in your house and kill you because he did the drugs? Or, like,
you can't know, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's the problem with a lot of this stuff, is you just can't know. That's generally why it seems like a lot of legislation exists in the first place, is because one bad thing happens one time, and then people say, well, you just can't know, so better make sure no one can do that thing ever again.
Yeah.
Right?
So government, you mentioned kind of government went full hog with this. They spent a lot of money.
Too much.
And this is something I haven't gotten to broach too much with Ken, but I want to, and hopefully I think I might have him on. I might try to get both you and him on maybe 2 weeks from now, so all three of us can powwow, because we haven't all three of us had a good conversation quite a long time. But yeah, it's a lot of money, and so my kind of personal opinion is like the government created this mess by not having an efficient response system and an early warning system, and not taking the appropriate measures to stop this from happening. But at the same time, like, and so I'm in favor of, like, all the checks, like the $1,200 payments and the expanded unemployment benefits, because I feel like like it's the government's fault that people are unemployed. 40 million people are unemployed, right? And they're unemployed because the government, in my opinion, the government fucked up. Like we, as a society, we have a social contract, right? We come together as a community and say, for the betterment of our community, there are certain things that we want to have in place. We want to have a federal government because we want to have an army to protect us, and we want that federal government to make sure that we as a nation stay safe. And in my opinion, the federal government failed to do that. So I think the federal government should have to pay for that. But on the flip side, $3 trillion is a lot of money. And I don't...
That's a lot of debt that your kid is going to have to pay off. You realize that?
Yeah.
Actually, your great grandchildren will still be paying.
Well, they're probably never going to pay it off. I mean, the debt that our national debt has reached such a point where I don't think it can ever be paid off. There's, like...
Well, it can be, but the level of austerity that would be required to do that would, it would be unacceptable to everybody, right? I mean, you would have to be taxed 100% and then some. You'd have to give a pound of flesh a year to the IRS for them to conduct rituals to remove part of the debt.
Yeah.
In order to get it paid off ever in your lifetime. But
that's the thing that sits a little strange with me, is that is a lot of money. $3 trillion is so much money. Trillion with a T, man. And it's where is that money coming from? And it just kind of has been well, we just created the money because we needed to give it to people, which means that somewhere around the corner is hyper ass inflation.
Yeah, I mean, don't even get me started on this whole deficit spending insanity. I mean, it's it is funny to me because I've been reading a lot of stuff lately because all I can do when I'm molding flora is just read stuff. So I was looking at Reconstruction, when after the Civil War, a lot of Northerners went south to rebuild the South. But when you read about it, it was just a ton of corruption and all this kind of stuff. And you look at the amounts of money they're talking about, and they're like, yeah, they spent $30 million to build this railroad across the United States. And people were outraged with how much the government was spending. I'm like, I'm pretty sure our government spends $30 million a millisecond.
Yeah. Yes.
It is crazy the level of decadence that we've just come to expect from our government now. But I don't think that's ever going away. It's unfortunate, but what can we do about it? That spigot's been turned on and someone knocked it off, and that keg is just draining itself. So,
but something's gotta give eventually, right?
Does it though? I mean, theoretically, does it?
I don't know. I mean, how long can you just continue to create money for before? I guess you don't run out of money, but you have to get to a certain
devalue it, right? So every time the Fed prints a dollar, your dollar is worth less.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the Fed prints $3 trillion to pay for, UBI in disguise, basically, your money is just worth that much less. There's that much more money in circulation. They should not have the ability to do that. The problem is the scale, right, of our economy is so much greater than you can have. The people who call for a gold-backed economy, the mega libertarian in me is rah, rah, rah. I'm all for a tangibly backed currency.
Mm-hmm.
But how there isn't $3 trillion of gold in the world? You know what I mean? There just isn't physically enough material to back the currency at the scale that we have now. When we're having $14 trillion a year in GDP, is there that much money? Is there that much gold to be equally, or are you talking about giving here's your atom of gold that is equivalent to $1? You know what I mean? One molecule of gold. Got it. You just can't work at that scale. But especially with this push towards going away from cash, now that everything's I feel like people are going to be less aware of how much less your money's worth now that everything's going towards electronics, right? I remember a day when I would go to Taco Bell and I would get a food for a family of 5 for $10, and I go now and I get a meal and a side thing for Claire, and it's $16. And the
Jesus.
only reason I'm cognizant of that is because I have a 20 that I'm giving the person. I'm like, I used to get 2 meals out of this, and now I'm getting, 1.25 maybe.
Mm-hmm. Have you
So
seen Dave Ramsey's statement about the non-cash economy that we're heading towards? Basically saying that, like, if you don't have cash, you don't have control over your money. When your money's all digital, it's controlled by the bank. It's controlled by other people, and they can tell you what to do or what not to do with your money if they truly wanted to. You lose control of your capital when you don't have cash, or cash as an option.
And think about this, right? Like, if you are someone who hates big banks or whatever, if you're moving to an economy where no one's accepting hard currency and you have to have all your money behind a debit card, who are you giving your money to? This is basically the best thing to ever happen to Wells Fargo and Bank of America in their entire history, because everyone's being forced to use their services now, or like a local credit union or whatever. You don't have any options anymore. So yeah, I don't know. It feels like it's all spiraling a little out of control, but what can you do? I mean, I am just one man, and I have a castle of my own to protect. I can't worry about the rest of the world. So
Yeah, for sure. It does seem like it's, I don't know, man. Do you feel the despair? Like I feel
no,
this,
because
like,
I can
go on.
go ahead. Sorry.
I would say I get just like I tried to stay optimistic about everything, right? And it's like, like, I do believe, like, eventually SAK is going to come back. We're going to be running events again. Smash community is going to come back. All that stuff, I'm actually really optimistic about where the Twitch stream is going. Like, the viewership numbers have been good, and I think there's some cool opportunities there. And I'm excited for like the transition, that kind of transition. But at the same time, there's like this despair that hangs over everything of, like, it's just all spiraled out of control, like, so fast. Like, we went from everything being relatively normal, right, day to day, like, what, everyone had freedom, everyone was out doing their thing, there was wealth, and to now I walk into a Costco and there's blast guards up, and I go to, like, I can't, like, I go to Dutch Bros and they have to put my tip in for me because I can't touch the screen anymore, and we don't use cash anymore, and no one's on the roads at 7:00 on a Saturday, and there's like this creeping despair where you're just like you're like, you take a hard look at it, and sometimes you're like, oh, it's scary out there, man.
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, like, it will only get as scary as you let it, because you are entirely within your rights just not to comply. Like, what are they going to do? The worst thing they're going to do is say, like, you can't be in the store anymore. Okay, you've really hurt me there. Like, whatever. I don't know. It's very frustrating, because it is definitely a time where there's been so much change, and even though it's been 5 months, it still feels like it's all happened relatively quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And then people who are like, if you're calling this the new normal, you either have an agenda, or you are the most doomer person, just lack of hyper pessimism that I would have ever seen. This will not be the new normal, because you're even seeing it now. People are just like, I don't care about those rules. You can keep your rules. I don't care. I'm going to go have COVID party. Ugh. What are you going to do about it? Like, not to minimize anyone who's had, like, I know people who have had people die from this. Okay. So I'm not without a heart, but do we really want to halt the entire world because people over 70 can't go outside? I don't think that's doing anyone any favors. I think that you're going to see more deaths from people who've lost their businesses and just either fall into alcoholism or commit suicide than you're going to see die from the virus. So
it isn't just people over 70 though, right? Like, there are people who are getting, people in their 20s getting it and having strokes. They're losing limbs, or they're coming away with severe, like, needing a lung transplant because the damage to their lungs is so severe.
Right, but I would ask you, looking at these rising case rates, right, and then these follow-on effects, like, your chance of that happening to you if you have it seems to be pretty low from what I've seen. I'm not an epidemiologist, right? I don't have all this data on hand, and I'm just from the last thing I remember hearing. That seemed to be the case, but it doesn't seem as dangerous it doesn't seem dangerous enough to warrant destroying our entire economy, right? And like putting 40 million people into unemployment because the risk is great to a certain segment of the population that's not that active anyway. So,
but that's part of, that's one of the difficulties, I think, is there's not a lot of information. Like, it's been 5 months and it's like, what is the mortality? What is the true mortality rate of COVID? We don't know. How does it really spread? Well, we know that it spreads airborne, but like is there a way that I can go somewhere and know I'm completely safe without being locked in my home with, like the barricades up and not letting anyone in? Like what are the after effects? Like what is the actual, like again, I've heard anecdotal stories about people who need lung transplants at the age of 25 because it did so much damage to their lungs, but like, what are the actual after effects? How much does it scar the human body, and is that scarring consistent or is it random? There's just no data. And I don't know if it's because it's a new virus, we don't know the effects, or if it's because there isn't proper data collection and distribution happening.
Well, I mean, I think you see the same thing with the flu. So I remember reading a thing where you don't actually know how many people died of the flu every year, but you know that, or you don't know how many people are going to get it, but you know how many people die. So you're making an assumption, but you have enough like general information to know that it spreads this way. If you have like this many people come to some locus with it, then you make this certain assumption about how many other people might have it, right? That is the scale that we're working at, where you have a numerator and a denominator, and one number and you will never know the other, because we can test every person in the United States and we still won't know how many people actually got the virus here. That's just the way things are going to work. So, and it will never change because of the type of virus it is. Like SARS was here before. This is a coronavirus. It's SARS-CoV-2, if you'll recall. Like, we have dealt with something like this before. This one just happens to be a much more virulent, right? It's just getting a lot further and doing more damage than the previous one. So, what do you think? I mean, I don't think it's ever going away.
What do you think could have been done? Could anything have been done to have prevented this, in your opinion?
No. Like, if you are going to couple so closely to a country that is going to have continual outbreaks of these like massively destructive sicknesses, you can't be surprised when that comes back to bite you.
Yeah.
Like there are people flying to and from the US from China every day. And not, the Chinese government didn't even lock down Wuhan until like they knew beforehand and then let people leave and then they locked it down. What did you think was going to happen? And there's just no way to know. I don't think there was anything that could have been done at the outset aside from just halting travel and like at common ports of entry, trying to set up testing stations, I guess. I mean, they didn't really have cheap, quick tests to do for this when it started. Like PCR testing is not fast, or at least the ones that they had at the beginning, that was a big problem, and we didn't have a stockpile of them. But I don't think anything. I think this is run about as well as it was going to run in a country that is a federal. Right, like the states at the end of the day have their own ability to manage things like this. It is not necessarily the federal government's responsibility to have a state lockdown. That's the state's responsibility. Federal government is there to lend aid if asked, right? But it is not the federal government's responsibility to handle this at anything more than like a foreign relations or military level, because that's what they're supposed to exist for. Like, you want the government entities that are closest to you having the most say. That's not the case most of the time. But your city knows better about what you need than the federal government does, because your city is where you live and they're around you. Make sense?
Yeah.
So
So you don't. So
I
what?
do.
When you hear a lot of people say things like, "Well, if we'd had, like what I said earlier, if we'd had testing and contact tracing, you don't think that would have made a difference?"
No, it's an airborne like super flu. What are you even if you can contact trace, all that's going to do is show other people who've already gone to see other people and possibly infected them.
Do you
Like
think it would have been too
the
late?
yeah, well, it's that is the whole game with the virus thing is it's always too late. Because if someone has an airborne virus infection and you're finding out about it at like a hospital, it's already too late because they've already likely passed it on to someone else. That's just the way, if you're breathing into your wife's face, you've given her the virus now,
Mhm.
theoretically, right? Like that's the assumption we're supposed to make about an airborne virus. So
What about countries though, like South Korea, that really rapidly deployed testing and had drive-through testing within the first month and only have less than 500 deaths even now?
sorry, it kind of glitched out
Oh,
the last bit of that. Can you repeat that?
I was saying, what about countries like South Korea, where they rapidly deployed testing and they had drive-through testing, I think within like a month, and they have like far fewer deaths. Like I think it's less than 500 if I'm not mistaken. I'll look that up right now. But like,
I would be curious to see what their deaths per capita are because they're also like, you know, have as many people as a medium state does in
yeah,
the
I mean, I think
US.
there's
Like we have 230 plus million people here and they've got what, like
I think they
10,
have 30 million
30
maybe.
million? So they got less than 10% of our population. Like I'm sure that they still have less per capita deaths, but I don't know. Like we didn't have the tests and we couldn't make them because we don't have manufacturing capacity in this country anymore. What were we supposed to do?
Yeah, 300. They had 300 deaths. They have 14,000 cases, 13,000 recovered. And what's their death rate or their daily case rate?
Wouldn't that be 1,000 deaths then if they had 13,000 recovered out of 14,000?
Well, the
What's
others are
other than
the other 1,200 are still recovering. I think
okay,
is
okay,
how
I get
that.
you.
I think that's how that statistic is defined. Um, let's see, South Korea. Yeah, they had their highest number of cases was 1,000 on March 1st, and then they currently have 100 and they have 20, or that was their highest number of daily cases. They had 1,000 cases in one day on March 1st, and now they're getting less than 50 on average every day. So like, and I mean, what's the population of South Korea? Let's find out. Can we find? Do they have their deaths per capita on here? I don't know. Hey Siri, what's the population of South Korea? Tell me. Oh, hey Siri, answered. Wow, that worked. Okay, 51 million people.
51 million. Okay, so
Yeah.
one sixth or so of our population,
Yeah, but
and a
that's
very different future. So like people are it is a lot more of a different. If you try and tell me that I have to go get a test, I'm not going to go get a test.
yeah.
I don't want to.
The
I will
cultural
go get a
difference.
test if I want to. That's not how it works over there,
Yeah,
right? Like you do what you're told. It's very hierarchical society. So
yeah. I mean, it
if
is
the government
definitely.
wants to test you, you're getting tested.
Yeah, that's the thing is it is very different, like culturally. Like mask wearing, as we know, having been to China, and stayed there, having lived there for a month when we were teenagers, we know like mask wearing is a common thing there. It's just if
Oh.
you feel sick, you wear a mask when you go out in public because you're going to be in a
Very congested, high population area, most
yeah,
likely.
exactly. You're going to be around people very close proximity, and so as a courtesy, you don't want to get them sick. That's like a cultural thing. So, but like, doesn't that show that like there could have been something that could have been done? Like if the government had come out and do you think it's just culturally in the United States, we have too much of a culture of liberty and we don't have those cultural norms instilled in us. And so we weren't going to be able to get with the program no matter what.
I think there was clearly like structural issues, right? So there weren't tests
Mm-hmm.
to test people with. There still aren't in some localities because we're much larger than South Korea, both from a population perspective and geographically.
Yeah.
Like They are the size of Arizona. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to get things when you have a high speed rail that goes across your whole country than if we have to manufacture it somewhere, I don't know where, and then get it to another state in sufficient numbers. Because how do you adequately distribute testing in Los Angeles that is a city that has a higher population than our entire state does? You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like, there are structural issues. And then, yeah, at the end of the day, like, it is an American thing to be a rebel, and whether that's a good or bad in all situations, it is the case. And so if you tell me that you know, requiring me to get a test, I'm just gonna say no and walk away. And what are you gonna do? I'm free not to. So
Yeah, but
I'll
I
do it
think,
when I want.
but that goes back to the argument that, or to that discussion we had of like, if they tell you you need to get a test because it's in the best interest of the society, should you not do that?
If the best interest of society so happened to coincide with my best interest at that point in time, then good for society, because I would be getting a test anyway for myself on
Yeah,
my own, right? But I just, do not tell me what to do. I don't like it.
but they would call you selfish for that.
I don't care.
Fair enough.
It's material to me. I mean, I'm doing what I want. I'm happy.
Yeah. Do you think that we could get this under control? With, you see a lot of people saying if we had 80% of people wearing masks and if we had a stronger government response, we could have this under control in 4 to 6 weeks.
No,
Do you think
absolutely not.
do you think it's going to be herd immunity then? That's the only way?
I don't even know if there's going to be herd immunity. Do we have herd immunity for the flu? I mean, that kills 50,000 people a year, and that's a pretty, you know, high virulency, mild lethality virus. So, like, we don't know anything. I mean, I've read some stuff, but it doesn't seem like we know much about how this thing is going to mutate. So, are we going to, let's say we go through hyper draconian measures of forcing people to do stuff against their will, and then it pops up again in 6 to 8 months? Are people going to be complaining again that we didn't do enough? Like, how far is too far for someone who is wanting to force somebody else to do something against their will? I think the slippery slope is worse than the virus is. I think it will have a worse long-term effect, and I just don't know that we're going to ever get out from under this thing. I don't think we can. It's like, we know so little about this stuff, despite it ravaging our civilization every like 100 years, right? We seem to have some Black Death or something that's destroying empires,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
we still
Spanish
haven't
flu.
figured out a good way to handle that. So
Yeah, I mean, the Spanish flu
yeah,
of
the Spanish
1917
flu,
was the last time we saw something like this, and
bubonic plague. There was a plague that destroyed, that just, decimated Rome. Like, this stuff just pops up because, like, what, let's say they go unearth. Have you ever seen the what is the name of that show? Fortitude on Amazon. The show Fortitude.
mm-mm.
It's a pretty good show. You should go see it. I'm shilling for Amazon. But the whole notion of the first season is it's basically this island that is, for all intents and purposes, just a glacier with some land at the end of it, and they settle a town here for research. They unearth this mammoth that happens to have these wasp eggs in it that hatch because they've been in the permafrost, so they're perfectly preserved, and they lay eggs in humans.
Oh, Jesus, that's
and
horrifying.
and make the humans go crazy like the cordyceps fungus does for ants, to kill other humans to put the eggs in them. How would we handle that? Right? There are so many unknowns when it comes to this stuff that I don't think you can't get ahead of something that you will always be trailing, right? Now, in some cases, we have had great success. Like, there's no polio here. At least there wasn't for a long time. You don't see the plague here very often. Like, they find it in rats in places, but you don't see it very often in people.
Yeah.
But those are also things that don't like have a high incidence rate in the first place. You can't really spread polio that easy, right? And we have a vaccine for it, so it's not going to be a big problem again.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll end up with a vaccine in the next year, and that's what a lot of people are clinging to and hoping for, is that we'll have a vaccine. But I do wonder if it's going to be more like a flu vaccine.
I think there's no way that it's not going to be like a flu vaccine. I think you're either going to play along and get the C-19 vaccine every year, or you won't, right?
Hmm.
But the reliance will be that enough, it's the same idea with the flu vaccine, where enough people are going to get it that hopefully it helps stop more people from dying to the flu.
Yeah,
That's the
I do think that there will more people will get the COVID vaccine, because the interesting thing has been like trying to find like concrete information about what the death rate is, and you hear a lot of different you hear different rates from different places. So like I've done the napkin math, and I've found that if you look at the number of deaths worldwide versus the number of cases worldwide, and you look at the number of cases in the U.S. versus the number of deaths in the U.S., you get about like 4%. And that I think I did all the way down even to the state level of like, and it still was about 4% of people have died who have contracted the virus. And so, but then you hear these stories about like, well, it's actually only 1%. It's barely worse than the flu in terms of mortality, but it's more virulent, and that's why more people have died, because more people have gotten it. So that's something that like I wish we had more concrete information about, because 4% is really, that's a scary number, right?
That's a problem, but it's not. I mean, if it was 4%, then there's like a high likelihood that you would know someone that died from it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's virulent enough that like I know someone who died from it and I've never met them. Or if I have, I don't remember. I just heard that they died from it. So
yeah, I know someone like Kimmy knows somebody who died from it. It was the father of someone that she knew, that she knows passed away from it. And I remember telling her, I was like, if this goes where everyone's saying it's going to go, you and I will know someone who will die from it by the end of this. Like, there will be someone relatively close to us who will die from this.
But see, the thing you got to look, like, I guess my curiosity is for this 4% thing. I'd be curious to see the clusters of the demographics where it's occurring, because it's like, 4% of cases have died by your napkin math.
Yes.
But within that 4%, is it like 3.9% are people who were old and had comorbidities, like someone with diabetes who was 80 died from it, and that's a big cluster. And then you have this kind of trail leading up to it of the odd 20-year-old who had some other precipitating factor that led to their death. Like, that's the level of detail that we need, because if you just come out saying 4%, now that's all the justification anyone needs to say, well, I guess we're all living in bunkers now. No one's allowed to leave the house, government order, which is an unacceptable solution for a lot of people, myself included. Like, we need more detail. And unfortunately, that stuff comes with time. So it's not something that we're going to have necessarily right now, because yes, we have the highest case rate in the world. We also test a lot more than anyone else does. So like, by virtue of how many tests we've done, of course we're going to have a higher case rate. We've tested more people. So
but that doesn't, I always find that argument troubling, because yes, you have a higher case rate because you test more people, but even if you weren't testing people, you'd still have all those cases there. You just wouldn't have them recorded.
Yeah, but so here's the thing, right? So it's this numerator and denominator problem. It's how many people have died versus how many people had it. So if you just have how many people died, which we do to an extent, but you don't know how many people had it, that's going to drastically change the scale of the thing you're talking about. Because if you have 4 over 10, or you have 4 over n, right? And n is 10 or n is 100, that's a very different thing.
Yeah.
So, your 4 over 100 will be more in line with your 4%. But if it's 4 over 10, then we're all dead, right? Because that's 40% of people dying.
Yeah.
So the orders of magnitude different. And we don't know if it's going to be that way in this case, but it could be. Why would we make such huge, sweeping infringements of liberty without enough information to justify them? And to me, it doesn't feel like we have that much information.
Yeah. You feel like it was, well, I mean, there definitely was panic, right? Like, people were scared. Everyone was scared when this first happened. Like, it was like, it's the Black Plague. Like, millions of people are going to die. Even the government came out and they were like, we think it's going to be about 2 million. Like, pretty sure 2 million people are going to die. Sorry. Then it was like,
and look how wrong they were. I mean, it's not even like maybe 2 million worldwide, if that. and not
Yeah.
anywhere close to here. We're close to 2 million. So again, you cannot trust people who've never encountered something before to give you an accurate estimation.
Yeah. How many people have died worldwide? 650,000 people have
There you
died
go.
worldwide.
So less than half of that original estimate, which was just, a hand wave basically. So
Yeah. Oh God, what's going on? Pulling up my calculator. We'll do the napkin math right now. 652,000 people have died. There have been 16.4 million confirmed cases. So worldwide, the death rate is 3.98%.
right.
This
And
is all
then
according to Google's numbers.
okay. But my expectation would be as time goes on, you're going to see the case confirm rate go higher and the deaths are going to be like logarithmic for the most part. So that percent shrinks, and where that percent is in the population does matter. Because again, if it is a matter of people who are old or infirm,
Mm-hmm.
right, which are a small percent of the population, should not be going outside or should be wearing masks. Okay, but that's not. I'm not old or infirm, so why do I have to do that?
Yeah.
Why should I? Why should a place of business be closed for people aren't going to be going there?
Yeah.
So
You did smoke for a decade though.
so
You're
I,
not
my I've had my lungs looked at perfectly fine. So
fuck, of course, Addison. Of course.
yeah, that'll come back to bite me, I'm sure. But
I
I'm
hope that
not.
it does, and I hope that you got off scot-free because you're my best friend. I would never want anything to happen, but
Yeah, I hope I got off scot free too.
okay, so statewide, nationally, 150,000 people have died. There have been 4.37 million confirmed cases, so the death rate is 3.43% nationally. In Arizona, there have been 33,320 deaths on let's see, out of 164,000 cases. Oh crap. I messed my math up. 1 sec. 164. Okay, so that brings it to 2%, 2.02% in Arizona.
Yeah, they just do like 3/16 basically.
Yeah. So like that's the napkin math, right? Like that's what that says, is that so in Arizona it could be as low as 2%. But I actually want to hit on something you mentioned, because I think I'm understanding better what you were saying, which is that so worldwide 650,000 people have died. Mm-hmm. But we don't know how many people actually have the virus or have gotten the virus. And as that number plays out, the theory is that it will come much closer to maybe a 1%. Because if you were to test every single person in the world right now and find out if they had COVID or not, then let's say half of the world has COVID, then 650,000 deaths is not a lot.
Yeah. So that's my theory. I mean, who knows? I am a guy with a bachelor's degree in computer science. I am by no means an epidemiologist, but it's just what it feels like. I mean, that's my gut reaction to it. So at the end of the day, I can't do anything about it. So I'm just going to keep living my life. Well, sorry.
Yeah.
World.
Well, I mean, that's all anybody can do, though. I mean, it's like that's why I was saying that, Kimmy and I went up to our friend's cabin and they were there, and like they were not technically within our bubble, but it's like we know that they like you have to just make your assessments as best you can about the people that you're going to be around, because if we are even going to be in this for another year, like you just have to be able to live a life of some kind to a certain extent. Like, you can't just be stuck in your home forever. You have to work. You have to live. Like, human beings, generally speaking, are not designed to be stuck inside a dwelling permanently. Like, we need to go outside. We need to socialize. We need to experience nature. Like, and
well,
so
even just having the sun is important for your body. That's your vitamin D.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, you are a part plant. You need the sunlight. So.
Yeah, so it's like, I remember talking to my parents about it, and my parents were pretty concerned. They locked down like early, and they still have like a sanitation protocol for their home and stuff. It's like if anything that comes in, not like groceries, because we now know that like groceries are not like really a source of infection. Like you're probably going to be okay, but like anything that like comes in, how like shoes have to be sanitized, that kind of stuff, anything that's going to go on high contact surfaces. But I remember talking to my mom at one point, and she's like, like we've been in this for a couple months, and we're probably not getting out of it anytime soon. So the only thing each of us can do is just make the best decisions that we can for ourselves and for those we care about.
Sound familiar?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think that's what you do. It's like, I'm not going to go hang out with someone who's going to bars every day, and who is in a packed bar with a whole bunch of people, because mortality rate or not, severity or not, like I don't want the virus. And my biggest fear is giving it to my parents or giving it to somebody who I'm close to who would be at risk. And so I'm not going to go and spend, if I have a friend who I know is spending all their time at bars and packed restaurants really close to people, I'm not going to spend time with them. I'm not going to go hang out with them. But if I have friends who I know they're being reasonable and they're, they're keeping distance from people, they're not going to bars, or like, that's the biggest culprit. Honestly, it seems like going to bars seems to be like the greatest culprit, and being in really packed places. Also, gyms seem to be pretty bad.
Well, any place where you're going to have someone talking in your face, right? I mean, if it's an airborne virus, if their breath is getting on your eyes, there's your risk factor. So.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of all any of us can do, is just like, even with hosting events again, like we have this event coming up next weekend for a game with the Game On Mega Drive-In. Make sure you guys register and go get your tickets at GameOnDrive-In.com. We're going to try it. We don't know what's going to happen, but all we can do is just take the best steps that we can to protect the people who are going to be coming to our events if they want to come to our events. So it's interesting. It's a weird world, Addison. We're living in strange times.
Yeah, but we'll get through it. We have before, we will again.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, man. Damn, it's almost 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I got to go take the baby.
So. I was going to say, do you want to keep going? Or
I want to, but A, my tablet's about to die, and B, Claire is pestering me to come take the baby so she can sleep. So
well, she definitely needs to sleep. All right, well, the nice thing is I do this every week, so there's gonna be a lot more opportunities to have you on and have Ken on, and the next one we'll get all three of us together, and we'll get into really nice deep conversation, have a good chat. So I appreciate you, brother. I know, like, I love you, man. I really do. I've known you for, like you said, half our lives. You're my closest friend. I appreciate you coming and doing this podcast with me, and I miss seeing you. I know that you're in the baby throes right now, and I wish you all the luck in the world with that. And if you ever need anything from Kimmy and I, definitely let me know. But I look forward to when we can get together and play D&D and go out to Hot and Juicy again.
Oh, Hot and Juicy. Oh man, I wonder if they're on Grubhub.
Oh, I bet they are, dude. But is it the same? Is it the same if someone brings a bag of shrimp to your house versus delivering it to your table?
I'll have a pound of boiled shrimp, please.
They have to do it in the buckets, though. They have to do it in the bucket. Like a dude shows up and he's just got several pails of seafood, and he dumps it on your porch and drives away.
I see you got 3 pounds of crab legs. Yeah, I kind of punctured the bag on the way here, so have fun.
Yeah, good luck. So, all right, man. Well, I really appreciate you doing this, and I'll keep in touch for sure, and probably have you back on in a few weeks with Ken, man.
Cool. Just let me know.
All right. Have a good one, bro.
Check you later.